Am I the only one that thinks
Yeah.
the PS4 one looked a lot better? Wait, hold on, let me go
It
back.
did.
No, I
The
Uh,
agree. It
Yeah,
looks
PS4
yeah,
better.
one
it
looked
looks
way
better in every
better.
way.
Atreus, look at this because you always disagreeing for fun. Look at this. Look at the PS4 and then look at the PS5. Am I bugging? Watch.
What the hell?
Until Dawn is one of those games that keeps showing up on what feels like every single Sony console that ever exists and will exist moving forward for eternity. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. Sony themselves decided to, for whatever reason, put a whole bunch of money into not just porting a game to the PlayStation 5 for people to be able to play it and access it, but instead give it the full remake treatment so that they could sell it for the inflated price tag of $60 USD, the full retail price. For whatever reason, Sony did the number crunching and felt like that was the better idea instead of just putting the game out again on the PlayStation 5 and saying, yeah, it's the definitive version. It's got like sharper lines on the people's faces or whatever, which is what typically works, by the way. There's a lot of gamers that are perfectly fine with that, but Sony wanted to go the extra mile with this game that literally nobody was asking for it to be done with, but whatever, maybe we'd be surprised. Well, the game is now out, available for people to purchase, and the Steam numbers are there, and my goodness, this is not pretty. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out SmashJT.com for the full article breaking down the Until Dawn remake and why it's an utter catastrophe. Until Dawn on the PS5 and PC remake is having a very rough launch. It's scarier than the game itself. The remake of Until Dawn has faced a rough reception with numerous issues that have left gamers very disappointed, to say the least. Not only has the remake launched with technical bugs, but the player numbers on Steam are alarmingly low compared to the PlayStation exclusives that have successfully transitioned to PC, like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima. According to Steam database, the game has peaked at just 2,607 people concurrently playing the game, a figure that looks great when you compare it to Concord or Dustborn, but in all seriousness, this is a game that Sony looked to make some money off of, have some attention with, get some sort of audience behind it, something along the lines of maybe not God of War or Ghost of Tsushima, like I mentioned earlier, where they had over 70,000 concurrent players when it launched and how people were all about those games, but maybe Ragnarok, 35,000 would look pretty good for a max concurrent. Something around those numbers. I think Sony might be like, we would have wanted better, but this is a good start, and maybe we can make some money on this in the long run if these numbers keep up. But no, 2,607 people at launch. And while we don't have the numbers for the game's actual budget at this time, rumors are suggesting that it was not cheap. I've seen a lot of people crunching the numbers, looking at the people putting the game together, everything that went into it, and potentially seeing numbers as high as, I've seen $30 to $50 million type thing. And if that's anywhere close to being the case, they are going to be losing their shirt on this. Well, maybe not the Concord shirt, but still, this is going to be losing a ton of money for Sony. And it makes you wonder, how can they keep doing this? How can they keep losing this kind of money on these games? Who is making the decisions for them in the first place? If I was in charge of Sony and they came to me with, hey, we got an idea, we want to remake this game, we already have it, it's a property of ours, we can just, update the graphics and make it look nicer, and it's going to cost us a few million, maybe 10, 15, 20, and the budget bloats to 25, 30 million, but we feel like it's going to make that back and then some. I'd say, how? Who's the player base for this? And it's the type of game where you play it once, you get the multiple endings, you enjoy it, you have a good time. Why would you go back to it in a future installation? Potentially new buyers, but wouldn't they just buy the cheaper version if we're going to be charging more? None of this makes sense. But let's dive into why it didn't make sense, because I feel like just saying, oh, the player numbers aren't there, there's no hype behind this, maybe it will just pick up in time. But no, checking into the actual reasons why gamers aren't picking up on this game is pretty obvious. We talked about it on Saturday Night Hypnosis, where Hypnotic brought up a comparison video showing specifically not just the graphical quote-unquote upgrades, if you want to even call it that, because many would look at this and say that downgrades, and in some cases, tremendous downgrades. But the graphics weren't even the biggest problem. What I took out of this was the lighting effects and how it's basically like bright. It feels like it's daytime compared to the original version that has a dark, creepy, gloomy outlook. The atmosphere is everything in a game like this, and they took it away to give enhancements to lighting to make it look better instead of actually being creeped out by the game itself. It's almost like the developers forgot that this was a horror game.
The story during the scene, it's between 10 and 11 at night.
So that's
Where's
what
all
I'm
this
saying.
fucking light coming
On the
from at 10
left-
and 11 at night
It
in
looks like
Canada?
there's forest fires going on the right.
Yeah,
That's
on,
what it
on
looks
the
like.
left, think of it from a point of view. If you're sitting in a theater and you're seeing this scene play out, sure, they might be having a pleasant conversation. Like Smash JT says, the ambience, the lighting, and the setting just don't match with what we're trying to do with the narrative.
On top of that, there are frame rate issues where it often drops below what the PS4 version even had, and then people are complaining about bugs and glitches, that the game itself is just all around not as good. It doesn't look as good, it doesn't play as good, there's shading problems, and a ton of other things going wrong with this game, on top of the full price MSRP when you can literally go to the PlayStation Store and buy the PS4 version for $20. A developer from the original Until Dawn chimed in Hypnotic's comment section trying to defend the remake and explain away the lighting differences. And he said to him, "Hey, I worked on the original Until Dawn. The original was made with Guerrilla Games' Killzone Shadowfall engine before it became Decima, Horizon Zero Dawn, Death Stranding. This remake was made by Ballistic Moon. They ported all the assets to Unreal Engine 5, hence the remake, as it's a completely new engine. This means all lighting, camera work, and cinematics had to be redone. Making stuff in Unreal Engine is very difficult, so a direct translation is almost impossible, but they gave it a go. That said, there are some creative liberties taken, it seems. Only a handful of the original developers worked there at Ballistic Moon, mostly engineers. So before I even continue with this, it almost feels like they're trying to explain away why it looks so different and how they had a hard time with this, because it's hard to port something from an old engine to Unreal 5. But if that's the case, maybe they should have looked at the scope of this project before they even progressed with it and said, maybe it's not worth doing this because we have no idea what we're doing here. The early game lighting change can be explained simply, and perhaps I can explain some of their thinking as this came up during the development of the original. It's sunset, so the warmer tones evoke less horror atmosphere. This is to contrast it later with the darker, bluer lighting, which is more horror. At some point in development of the original, we got rid of it because we wanted it unnerving from the get-go. So it looks like they reverted it back to the original idea, which it obviously looks like is what they did. They brought in a whole bunch of sunlight to make it a brighter, less gloomy outlook for at least the beginning portion of the game, which completely removes the unnerving aspect of it. Again, going back to the people making this game felt like they were trying to make it look as good as possible instead of focusing on the actual point of the game being surrounded in a horror atmosphere. Review outlets have not taken too well to this update either. Push Square on Metacritic said, Until Dawn drags a contemporary classic into a new generation, and its interactive teen slasher silliness more than holds up today. With vastly enhanced graphics and minor gameplay tweaks, this is still a highly recommended game. The problem is it costs 3 times as much as its 9-year-old predecessor and doesn't have an upgrade path. For all of its grisly glamour, that makes this remake a tough sell, especially when it runs at half the frame rate of the predecessor when played using PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility. And they gave it a 6 out of 10 or a 60 overall score, which isn't great in the modern era of gaming. If you're falling below that 8 out of 10, nobody's going to care about the game, especially when it's a full-priced event. Oh, it also requires a PSN network sign-in on PC for Steam, even though it's a single-player experience, just like God of War was, where people are up in arms about that as well. PC gamers will never wrap their heads around this and accept it, as much as Sony tries to shove it in their faces. Trash Ex Machina left a review on Steam saying, "This is complete garbage. Why would they require you to sign into PSN if you're on Steam? F you Sony and F you to whoever decided you need a PSN account to play this game. And here's the thing, if they maybe gave it an upgrade path and did the right thing to the consumers, saying, hey, we understand you own the original, you can put it in, we can check the disc and say, okay, you have it, we'll give you an upgrade path, just put that disc in every time you want to play it, and it'll be $10, just like they did with Horizon Zero Dawn and the remaster on that, and it's fine, no problems, and I think it would be a lot more understandable and accepting for gamers. But no, Sony was like, yeah, no, we're not even going to give that option. Just pay the full $60 price tag on this game where you can get the original for $20. And honestly, looking through the differences like we did on Saturday Night Hypnosis the other day, I saw very little that made me enticed to purchase the updated version. If anything, this sold me on playing the original version, which I have and still have not played yet. All I need to do is look at the reviews, compare them together, and say, why would I pay $60 for a game that looks worse than its predecessor that has existed for nearly a decade? It just doesn't make any sense, and it fully explains why nobody is taken to this game right now. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. If you guys want more information on Until Dawn's remake, check out SmashJT.com. I will link this article in the description below. If you appreciate what I'm doing, hit that join button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing.
Look at the comparison.
The joke was already made, but again, it feels like it's already dawn. Like it's so bright. A joke's not old. It's still every time you show this, it feels like
Somebody threw a fucking flashbang into the area. So what's happening here? I don't understand.